Imagine standing at the threshold of the Harmandir Sahib, the legendary golden temple of Amritsar, before your eyes even adjust to the shimmering reflection of 24-karat gold, dancing upon the sacred waters of the Amritsar. Your senses are hijacked by a symphony of purposeful chaos. It is a sound unlike any other in the world. The rhythmic, metallic clink-clack of thousands of stainless steel plates, known as thallas, being stacked and distributed with the precision of a Swiss watch. The air is thick and heavy, saturated with a fragrant fog of toasted cumin, earthy turmeric, and the sweet, buttery aroma of kara prasad cooling in the morning breeze. As you step deeper into the complex, the sheer scale of what is happening begins to defy your conventional understanding of logistics. This isn't just a communal kitchen, it is a living, breathing monument to human cooperation. In a world obsessed with VIP sections and velvet ropes, here you witness a radical erasure of boundaries. You see a high-ranking corporate executive in a bespoke suit sitting cross-legged on a simple jute mat, his shoulder pressing against that of a landless farmer with dirt beneath his fingernails. There are no chairs, no reserved tables, and no hierarchy. In this space, the other simply does not exist. There are only brothers and sisters sharing a meal in the dust. The Langar functions as the world's most successful experiment in radical equality. It is a place where physical hunger is satisfied with nutritious food, but more importantly, where the universal hunger for dignity is the guest of honor. Every day, between 50,000 and 100,000 meals are served here for free, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of caste, creed, or nationality. It is a choreography of compassion where the silence of inner meditation meets the frenetic, joyful movement of service. To the untrained eye, it looks like a miracle, but to the practitioners, it is simply the natural manifestation of a spiritual duty. Yet, to truly grasp why this tradition is so revolutionary, we must look beyond the steam of the massive cauldrons. We must understand that the Langar was not born out of a simple desire to feed the poor, but as a deliberate act of spiritual insurrection. In the 15th century, India was a land fractured by a rigid caste system where the shadow of a lower caste person falling upon the food of a Brahmin was considered a spiritual catastrophe. To suggest that a king and a beggar should eat from the same pot was not just a social foe, it was a dangerous, world-altering heresy. The genius of the Langar lies in its refusal to be a mere charity. Charity often maintains a distance between the giver and the receiver, reinforcing a power dynamic of the haves helping the have. The Langar destroys this. In the act of Pangat, the tradition of sitting in a straight line on the floor, the ego is systematically dismantled. When you sit on the ground, you are at the same level as the earth, and you are forced to look into the eyes of your neighbor. It is a physical manifestation of a profound philosophical truth, that the same divine light dwells within every single human being, without exception. This monumental operation runs entirely on the fuel of Seva, or selfless service. No one is paid to be here, yet the floors are spotless, the dishes are scrubbed to a shine, and the rotis are flipped with lightning speed. It is a triumph of the human spirit that leaves even the most cynical observers in a state of awe. You begin to realize that the food is almost secondary. The real nourishment is the sight of a society functioning as it should based on mutual respect rather than transaction. It is a glimpse into a world where no one is left behind, and everyone is welcome at the table. As the sun sets over the golden domes, and the scent of the evening's lentils wafts through the air, you find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about social order. How did a small community create a system that outlasts empires and functions better than most government social programs? The answer is hidden in the very DNA of the Sikh faith, and it starts with a vision that challenged the status quo so deeply that it changed the course of history forever. It is a story of courage, fire, and the simple, transformative power of a shared plate of food. What we see today as a perfectly oiled machine of kindness was once a radical threat to the ruling elite. But to understand how a single man's vision turned into a global force that feeds millions, we must travel back to the roots of a revolution that began with a refusal to follow the rules of the powerful. To understand the Langar, one must first understand the world into which Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of Sikh, was born in 1469. It was a landscape fractured by deep, jagged lines of social exclusion. The caste system was not just a social hierarchy, it was a spiritual prison. In this era, The purity of one's food was a marker of one's soul. High-caste individuals would throw away an entire meal if the shadow of someone deemed untouchable merely fell upon it. It was a world of walls, where the simple act of sharing a bowl of water could be a death sentence or a cause for social exile. In this climate of division, Guru Nanak performed a quiet but world-shattering act of rebellion. He didn't just preach equality, he institutionalized it through the stomach. He established the Pangat, the tradition of sitting in a straight, unbroken line on the floor to eat, by forcing the Brahmin priest, the Kshatriya warrior, and the Dalit outcast to sit shoulder to shoulder. He was effectively dismantling the scaffolding of the old world. He taught that if God is one, and the light is in all, then the kitchen must be the first place where that unity is practiced and proven. The legend of the Sacha Sauda, or the true bargain, perfectly encapsulates this mission. As a young man, Nanak was given 20 rupees by his father to start a profitable business. Instead of buying goods to sell for a profit, Nanak came across a group of hungry, thirsting dervishes and monks. Without hesitation, he spent the entire sum on food for them, claiming that feeding the hungry was the most profitable business a human could undertake. This wasn't just charity. It was a profound shift in the definition of wealth and investment in the human spirit. This revolutionary concept, however, was not met with universal praise. It was a direct threat to the status quo. The ruling elite and the religious gatekeepers saw the Langar as a dangerous subversion of the divine order. Yet Nanak persisted, insisting that his followers must first eat in the Langar before they could even enter his presence for spiritual discourse. He understood a fundamental psychological truth. It is impossible to talk about the sublime mysteries of the universe to a person whose stomach is growling with hunger, or who feels degraded by his neighbor. As the tradition passed to the subsequent gurus, the Langar became even more fortified as a pillar of the faith. Guru Angad Dev Ji, the second guru, expanded the role of women in the Langar, with his wife, Mata Kivi, taking a leading role in the management and service. This was another radical step in a patriarchal society, placing the hearth of the community in the hands of women. The Langar became a sanctuary where the marginalized found not just calories, but a reclaimed sense of self-worth, and a community that finally saw them as equals. By the time of the third Guru Amar Das, the Langar had become such a potent symbol of equality that even the mighty Mughal Emperor Akbar was told he could not see the Guru unless he first sat on the floor and ate with the commoners in the Langar. To the shock of his courtiers, the emperor complied, sitting in the dust with the peasants. This moment signaled that the Langar had become a sovereign space, a territory of the soul, where even the most powerful man on earth was just another human being in need of a warm meal. This was the birth of a movement that refused to be silenced. The Langar survived through periods of intense persecution, where Sikhs were hunted and their temples destroyed. Even in the dense forests where they hid for survival, the tradition of the shared meal continued. It was the glue that held the community together during its darkest hours, proving that a society built on the foundation of shared bread is far harder to break than one built on the foundation of shared gold or military might. The genius of Nanak's revolution was its simplicity. He didn't build a complex bureaucracy. He built a kitchen. He realized that the most effective way to change the world was not through a sword or a decree, but he turned the most basic human need, the need for sustenance, into the most powerful tool for social liberation ever devised. But as the centuries passed, this spiritual rebellion would face its greatest challenge: how to scale this intimacy to feed millions. While the philosophy was revolutionary, the sheer physical reality of the Langar today is an architectural and spiritual marvel. To understand how this ancient true bargain translates into tons of flour and thousands of volunteers, we must look into the theology of the plate, the hidden spiritual codes that turn a simple lentil soup into a divine experience. To the casual observer, the Langar menu might seem humble, a simple rotation of dal lentils, roti flatbread, and a vegetable curry. But in the world of global traditions, simplicity is often the ultimate form of sophistication. Every element of the meal is governed by the principle of bibik, a conscious, spiritual discernment. The most striking rule is that the Langar is strictly lacto-vegetarian. This isn't just a dietary preference, it is a masterstroke of inclusive design. By removing meat from the equation, the Sikh gurus ensured that no one, be they Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Jew, would be barred from the table due to their personal or religious dietary laws. At the heart of this culinary service is the concept of Seva, or selfless service. In Langar, the person cooking the food and the person serving it are engaged in a form of active meditation. As they stir the massive iron vats, many volunteers quietly chant Wahaguru, the wonderful enlightener, a practice known as Sim. This belief posits that the vibration of the cook's thoughts enters the food itself. The meal is not just fuel for the body. It is prasad, a sanctified offering. When you eat a meal prepared with zero ego and 100% devotion, you aren't just consuming calories. You are consuming a physical manifestation of peace. This spiritual connection transforms the kitchen into a cathedral. There is a specific reverence for the ingredients, particularly the wheat used for the roti. In the Sikh tradition, the earth is seen as a mother, and the food it provides is a gift that belongs to no one and everyone simultaneously. This is why you will never see a price tag near a Langar hall. To sell the food of the Guru would be as absurd as trying to sell the air we breathe. It is a radical departure from our modern, transactional world, where everything, even a seat at a table, is commodified and branded. Furthermore, the act of serving is as ritualized as the act of cooking. The servers move between the rows of diners with buckets and baskets, bending low to reach each plate. This physical act of bowing is a constant reminder of humility. In Langar, the server is not above the person being served. In fact, it is considered a blessing to be allowed to serve. This inversion of power dynamics is what gives the Langar its unique weight. It creates a space where the ego of the Hamai is systematically eroded through the simple, repetitive motion of filling a cup with water or placing a warm bread in a waiting hand. Even the way the food is received carries deep symbolic meaning. Diners are encouraged to receive the roti with both hands cupped together, a gesture of grace and gratitude. This creates a silent dialogue between the giver and the receiver, one that transcends language and culture. You might be a traveler from Brazil who speaks no Punjabi, sitting next to a local who speaks no English. Yet in the exchange of bread, a profound human connection is established. The plate becomes a bridge over the abyss of our perceived differences, proving that our shared needs are far more powerful than our unique identities. As you finish your meal, you notice that there is almost no waste. The culture of the Langar teaches that every grain is a blessing that must be respected. This mindfulness extends from the fire of the stove to the washing of the plates. It is a closed loop of respect. However, as your mind begins to grasp the spiritual beauty of this theology of the plate, a practical question begins to loom over the experience. How can such a hymn-ended spiritual ideal survive the brutal reality of feeding 100,000 people in a single afternoon? The transition from a quiet, meditative kitchen to a massive, industrial-scale operation is where the miracle of the Langar meets the marvel of engineering. It is a transition from the soul of the meal to the body of the operation, a logistics system so advanced and so efficient that it rivals the most sophisticated supply chains in the world. To understand the Langar's true power, we must now step into the heat of the big kitchen, where the spiritual becomes mechanical. But how do you coordinate 10,000 volunteers to produce 200,000 rotis without a single manager in sight? To find out, we must go behind the scenes into the architectural chaos of the Golden Temple, where we will witness a logistical feat that seems to defy the laws of physics. If you were to show the blueprints of the Golden Temple's kitchen to a logistics expert from a Fortune 500 company, they might tell you it is impossible. There are no computer-orchestrated supply chains, no professional management consultants, and no paid staff. Yet, the Harmandir Sahib operates a kitchen that never sleeps, producing food with a precision that makes industrial manufacturing look sluggish. The architecture of this space is designed for flow. Massive, cavernous halls, where the movement of people is as calculated as the movement of water. Every day, the facility consumes tons of flour, rice, and lentils. It is a staggering industrial feat, powered entirely by devotion. The heart of this operation beats in the roti section. While much of the bread is still hand-rolled by hundreds of volunteers sitting in circles, the sheer demand necessitated the introduction of automated machines. These mechanical titans can produce up to 25,000 flatbreads per hour. Watching them is a hypnotic experience. Balls of dough are pressed, baked, and flipped by iron belts, eventually cascading into giant baskets like golden rain. But Eben Iyer, the machine does not replace the human. It assists, Italiano. Groups of women stand at the end of the line, catching each warm roti and brushing it with ghee-clarified butter, ensuring that even a machine-made bread carries the touch of human care. Then, there are the cauldrons, massive iron vats known as degs. These vessels are so large that the men stirring them use wooden paddles that look like oars from a Viking ship. A single vat can hold hundreds of liters of dal, simmering for hours until the lentils reach a perfect, creamy consistency. The heat in these kitchens is intense, the steam is thick, and the noise is a constant roar of bubbling pots and clanging metal. Yet, there is no shouting. There is no stress. In any other kitchen of this size, you would find a head chef barking orders. Here, the chef is the collective spirit of the community, and the orders are understood through a shared rhythm passed down through generations. The cleaning process is equally monumental. In a city of silver and gold, the most valuable treasure might be the mountain of stainless steel plates that must be washed every few minutes. A human chain has formed a literal conveyor belt of people where plates are passed from the dining hall to the washing area. They are scrubbed through 5 different vats of water to ensure total hygiene. The sound of thousands of plates hitting the drying racks creates a percussive background track to the entire temple complex. It is a cycle of use, wash, and return that functions with near-continuous efficiency, ensuring that the next wave of 5,000 people sitting down always has a clean tray waiting for them. This architecture of chaos works because it relies on a modular system of labor. If more people arrive, more people step up to peel garlic. If a delivery of flour is delayed, the community finds a way to source it within minutes. It is a decentralized network that thrives on the absence of a rigid hierarchy. It proves that when a system is built on a foundation of absolute trust and a singular, selfless goal, the friction that usually slows down large organizations simply disappears. The logistics are not just about moving food, they're about moving human energy toward a common purpose without the bottleneck of ego. As you stand amidst the steam and the clatter, you realize that the most impressive machine in the building isn't the roti maker or the giant vats. It is the volunteers themselves. This brings us to a puzzling mystery. How does a kitchen attract tens of thousands of people to do backbreaking labor for free, day after day, for 500 years? It is a question that leads us away from the machines and into the soul of the invisible army that keeps the fire burning. But who are these people who spend their vacations peeling onions and scrubbing floors? The answer reveals a secret about human nature that modern society has largely forgotten. The profound, transformative power of Seva, where the billionaire and the beggar find a common identity behind a sink of dirty dishes. In any other part of the world, a workforce of this magnitude would require a human resources department, a payroll system, and a complex hierarchy of supervisors. But the Langar is powered by an invisible army that defies every law of modern labor economics. Here, the concept of Seva, selfless service, is the only currency. You might see a man in his 60s, a high-ranking justice from the Supreme Court, sitting on a low wooden stool for 4 hours straight, meticulously peeling mountain-sized sacks of garlic. Next to him, a traveler and a local teenager share the task of shucking peas. There are no titles here, there is only the work. And the work is a form of prayer. The beauty of this army lies in its radical anonymity. In the Langar, the ego is the first thing you leave at the door. People arrive from all corners of the globe, driven by a deep-seated spiritual urge to lose themselves in the service of others. This is not performative volunteering often seen on social media. This is grueling, hot, and often messy work. There is no one taking attendance, and there are no certificates of appreciation handed out at the end of a shift. The reward is the service itself, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that because you spent your afternoon scrubbing a massive iron vat, 1,000 strangers will eat a dignified meal tonight. This collective effort creates a unique social phenomenon, the dissolution of the self. In our modern hyper-individualized society, we are constantly told to build our brand and stand out. The Langar teaches the exact opposite. It teaches that your greatest value is found in your ability to be a useful, humble part of a larger whole. This is why you see billionaires washing the shoes of pilgrims at the temple entrance or CEOs mopping floors. By performing the tasks that society often deems lowly, they are performing a spiritual detox, flushing out the poisons of pride and arrogance that accumulate in the pursuit of worldly success. The coordination of this army is a marvel of emergent behavior. Without a central commander, people simply look for where the need is greatest. If a row of diners has just finished, a group of people will spontaneously appear with mops and boots. If a fresh delivery of flour arrives, a human chain forms instantly to move the heavy sacks into the granary. It is a swarm intelligence, fueled by a shared moral compass. This level of synchronization is only possible because everyone is working toward the same singular goal: to ensure that the fire of the Guru's kitchen never goes out and that no guest ever leaves hungry. Furthermore, the Langar serves as a bridge across generations. You will often see grandmothers teaching small children how to roll the perfect roti or how to pour water without splashing. It is an informal school of empathy and logistics. For many, the Langar is where they first learn the value of community and the reality of human interconnectedness. It is a living classroom where the curriculum is compassion and the final exam is a clean plate. This invisible army doesn't just feed books. It weaves the social fabric of the community together, one thread, or rather, one meal at a time. As you witness this sea of turbans and scarves moving in perfect unison, you realize that the Langar is a rare place where hierarchy collapses, at least for one meal, not through politics, but through a shared sink of dirty dishes. However, there is one specific ritual within this service that acts as the ultimate equalizer, a physical posture that every person must adopt, which reveals the deepest secret of the Langar's philosophy. It is a detail that changes how you see yourself and everyone around you. But why is the floor the most important piece of furniture in the entire temple? To understand the true geometry of equality, we must look at the specific physical act that every king and pauper must perform before they are allowed to take their first bite. In the modern world, furniture is often a silent language of status. We have head tables, thrones, executive chairs, and VIP booths, all designed to elevate some and lower others. The Langar, however, operates on a different plane of existence. Literally, when you enter the dining hall, known as the Langar Hall, you are greeted by an expansive, open floor. There are no chairs, no benches, and no stools. Every person, regardless of their bank balance, their age, or their social standing, is required to sit on the ground in long, straight rows, called Pangat. This is the geometry of equality, a physical mandate that levels the human ego by bringing it back to the earth. Sitting on the floor is a profound psychological equalizer. When you sit on the same level as someone else, you are forced to abandon the optics of power. A billionaire cannot look down on a beggar if their knees are touching on a simple jute mat. In this posture, everyone is equally vulnerable and equally honored. It is a visual representation of the Sikh belief that the same light shines within all. By sitting on the floor, you are making a silent declaration. I am no better than the person to my left, and no less than the person to my right. This simple act of sitting down becomes a ritual of de-escalation in a world of constant competition. The arrangement of the rows is also intentional. The Pangat is an unbroken line, symbolizing a community that is whole and inclusive. There are no ends to the line that signify more importance. As the servers move down these lines, they treat the row as a single entity of humanity. This geometry also facilitates a unique kind of social interaction. In a chair-based society, we tend to huddle in small, closed circles. On the floor of the Langar, you are part of a horizontal expanse. You might find yourself sharing a water pitcher with a traveler from a continent you've never visited, or helping an elderly person next to you adjust their plate. The floor removes the barriers of private space and replaces them with shared grace. This tradition was a direct response to the historical thrones of the elite. By refusing to provide chairs, the Sikh gurus ensured that even the most powerful visitors, including kings and emperors, had to submit to the sovereignty of the floor. It was a reminder that in the eyes of the divine and in the presence of hunger, all worldly titles are nothing more than dust. The floor is the great It doesn't care about the brand of your shoes, which you've left at the door anyway, or the tailor of your suit. It only cares about your presence as a human being in need of nourishment. Furthermore, sitting on the floor encourages a state of mindfulness and grounding. In many ancient cultures, the earth is seen as a source of stability and humility. By physically connecting with the ground, the diner is reminded of their own mortality and their connection to the natural world. You aren't just eating, you are participating in a grounded communion. The simplicity of the floor reflects the simplicity of the soul. It strips away the pretenses of the civilized world and returns us to a primal state of togetherness, where the only thing that matters is the bread being broken and the community being built. As you rise from the floor after your meal, you often feel a strange sense of lightness. It is as if, by lowering your body, you have managed to lift a weight off your spirit, the weight of having to be someone in the eyes of society. But this experience of equality is not a local secret kept within the walls of the temple. The philosophy of the Langar has a remarkable ability to travel. It is a portable sanctuary that has been deployed to the most desperate corners of the globe, transforming from a religious ritual into a global lifeline for humanity in crisis. But what happens when this geometry of equality is tested by fire, flood, or war? To see the Langar in its most heroic form, we must look at how it leaves the temple and enters the world's most dangerous, no man's lands, proving that a kitchen can be more powerful than a battalion. The true test of any philosophy is how it behaves when the lights go out and the world is in pain. In the last decade, the Langar has evolved from a temple ritual into a global rapid response system. Organizations like Khalsa Aid have taken the DNA of the Sikh kitchen and transplanted it into the heart of the world's most desperate, no man's lands. Whether it is the aftermath of a devastating earthquake in Nepal, the front lines of the war in Ukraine, or the smoke-filled streets of Australia during the bushfires, the Langar on wheels is often the first to arrive. They don't ask for ID, they don't ask for your religion, and they certainly don't wait for government clearance. They simply start the fire, boil the water, and serve the bread. This food diplomacy is a powerful form of soft power. In zones of conflict, where trust is a rare commodity, a steaming bowl of lentils served by a volunteer in a bright turban becomes a universal symbol of safety. During the height of the European refugee crisis, while borders were being reinforced with barbed wire, Sikh volunteers were setting up langars at train stations in Germany and Greece. They provided not just calories, but a sense of human continuity to those who had lost everything. It is a radical form of cultural anthropology in action, proving that the most basic human ritual, eating together, can bridge the deepest geopolitical divides. The logistics of these mobile langars are a marvel of improvisation. In the middle of a disaster zone, volunteers often have to build clay ovens from scratch or use massive industrial pots heated by whatever fuel is available. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when the world went into lockdown and millions lost their livelihoods overnight, the Langar bus became a common sight in cities like London and New York. While others were hoarding, the Sikhs were cooking. They delivered millions of meals to healthcare workers and isolated seniors, demonstrating that Seva's selfless service is not confined to a building, it is a portable state of mind that thrives in the face of scarcity. What makes this global expansion so significant is that it challenges the traditional model of Western charity. Often, international aid comes with strings attached or a sense of The Langar, however, arrives with the spirit of Vanchako, the mandate to share what you earn with the needy. They don't arrive as saviors, but as servants. This subtle shift in energy changes the entire interaction. It preserves the dignity of the recipient, treating them as a guest of the guru rather than a victim of circumstance. In a world of increasing cultural identity silos, the Langar acts as a universal glue, reminding us that our collective survival depends on our willingness to share our surplus. Furthermore, this global presence has forced a conversation about human connection in the 21st century. It shows that ancient wisdom can be more effective than modern bureaucracy in solving urgent problems. When the invisible army arrives in a new country, they don't just bring food. They bring a model of community resilience. They often recruit local volunteers, teaching them the art of Seva and leaving behind a blueprint for how a community can take care of its own. It is a form of transcendence that moves beyond religious boundaries to become a shared human heritage. As the Langar expands globally, it also faces the challenges of a modern, environmentally conscious world. How does a kitchen that feeds millions maintain its cultural heritage while also respecting the planet? The transition from ancient traditions to future-proof sustainability is the next frontier for this monumental operation. It is a journey from the smoky hearths of the past to the green kitchens of tomorrow, proving that a 500-year-old tradition can be at the cutting edge of a global environmental movement. But can a kitchen of this scale truly be green? To see how the world's largest kitchen is fighting both hunger and climate change, we must look at the ecological revolution happening inside the cauldrons, where solar power meets ancient recipes. In the modern era, the cultural heritage of the Langar is facing a new kind of test, the challenge of sustainability. Feeding 100,000 people a day is an industrial-scale operation, and like any industry, it carries a significant environmental footprint. However, the Sikh philosophy of Sarbata Bala, the welfare of all, naturally extends to Mother Earth. Today, the Golden Temple and many global gurudwaras are undergoing a quiet, green revolution. Massive solar arrays now gleam on rooftops, capturing the Punjab sun to power the colossal electric ovens and lighting systems. It is a striking visual. 500-year-old recipes being cooked with the most advanced renewable energy technology available. The ethics of the Langar extend deep into the supply chain. There is an increasing movement toward organic Langar, where the wheat, lentils, and vegetables are sourced directly from farmers who avoid chemical pesticides. This creates a human connection between the diner and the soil. By choosing organic, the Langar honors the ancient wisdom that the earth is a sacred trust, not a resource to be exploited. Furthermore, many kitchens have replaced plastic and styrofoam with biodegradable leaf plates or reclaimed stainless steel. Even the water used to wash the millions of plates is often recycled through sophisticated filtration systems to irrigate the temple gardens, creating a closed-loop ecosystem. This ecological mindfulness is not just a modern trend, it is a return to the roots of the faith. The gurus taught that the air is the teacher, the water is the father, and the earth is the great mother. Wasting food is considered a spiritual lapse. Every grain of rice is treated as a blessing, and diners are encouraged to take only what they can finish. The result is a level of efficiency that would shame most Western buffets. The mysteries of antiquity regarding how to sustain such a massive population are being solved through a blend of life, philosophy, and modern engineering, proving that tradition and progress are not enemies. Beyond the physical waste, the Langar also addresses the ethics of social sustainability. By providing a guaranteed high-quality meal to everyone, the Gurudwara acts as a massive stabilizer for the local economy and public health. In a world of rising food costs and food deserts, the Langar ensures that no child's brain development is stunted by malnutrition, and no elderly person is forced to choose between medicine and a meal. It is a model of collective memory that views the community's health as a shared responsibility rather than an individual burden. It is the ultimate social safety net, woven from the threads of compassion and carbon neutrality. However, the Langar's greatest contribution to sustainability might be psychological. In a consumerist culture that tells us we never have enough, the Langar experience promotes a sense of abundance through sharing. When you see that there is always enough for everyone, the impulse to hoard or compete diminishes. This shift in cultural identity from consumer to participant is essential for the planet's survival. The Langar teaches us that the solution to global scarcity isn't just better technology, but a better way of relating to one another and the resources we share. As you sit in the hall, breathing in the steam of a sustainably cooked meal, you realize that the Langar is a laboratory for the future. It shows us how to feed a crowded planet without losing our humanity or destroying our home. Batwilete How is increasingly high-tech. The food itself, remains rooted in a deliberate, elegant simplicity. To understand the true genius of the Langar, we must look closer at the menu, where simplicity is used as a tool for radical inclusion. But why is the menu almost always the same? And why does this simple food have such a profound effect on the human brain? To find out, we must deconstruct the anatomy of the menu, where we will discover how a humble bowl of lentils can become the most sophisticated meal you will ever eat. In the world of high-end gastronomy, complexity is often a marker of status, but in the Langar, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The menu is a masterpiece of cultural identity and nutritional engineering. It almost always consists of 4 pillars: dal lentils, sabzi, a seasonal vegetable curry, roti whole wheat, flatbread, and kia, a creamy rice pudding. This selection is not accidental. By sticking to these staples, the Langar ensures that the food is easily digestible, universally palatable, and, most importantly, inclusive. It is a menu designed to nourish everyone from a toddler to an octogenarian, bypassing the complexities of spices to focus on pure, clean sustenance. The dal is the soul of the meal. Simmering for hours in massive iron cauldrons, the lentils break down into a protein-rich, creamy consistency that provides the essential building blocks for a hard-working body. There is a specific ancient wisdom in this preparation. The slow cooking process in iron vats actually fortifies the food with essential minerals. When you eat this dal, you are consuming a recipe that has remained virtually unchanged for half a millennium. It is a taste of collective memory, a flavor that connects a modern digital nomad to a medieval traveler, proving that some things are too perfect to be disrupted by modern culinary trends. Then there is the roti. This simple bread, made from stone-ground whole wheat and cooked over an open flame or an industrial griddle, is the literal staff of life in Langar. The roti is more than food. It is an instrument of human connection. Because it is eaten with the hands, it forces a tactile relationship with the meal. There is no distance created by cutlery. To tear a piece of warm bread and dip it into a communal bowl of lentils is an act that strips away the pretenses of civilized dining and returns us to a primal state of shared humanity. It is life philosophy in its most edible form. The inclusion of kheer, the sweet rice pudding, serves a vital psychological purpose. In the tradition of Indian hospitality, a meal is not complete without a sweet mouth. This final touch of sweetness acts as a gesture of grace, a reminder that life, despite its hardships, contains moments of pure joy. Nutritionally, the sugar and dairy provide a quick energy boost, while the cardamom aids diet. Every ingredient is a gear in a machine designed for transcendence. Even the kara prasad, the sacred flour and butter pudding, served at the end of the temple visit, is calorie-dense and rich, designed to leave the visitor feeling physically and spiritually full. This anatomy of the menu also serves the monumental logistics we discussed earlier. By limiting the variety, the kitchen can focus all its energy on quality and volume. There is no waste from niche ingredients that only a few might like. Every bag of flour and every sack of lentils is guaranteed to be used. This is sustainability through standardization. It proves that you don't need an expansive menu to provide a world-class experience. You only need a menu that is executed with absolute love and total consistency. It is a lesson in minimalism that the modern world, with its endless and often paralyzing choices, desperately needs to hear. As you finish the last drop of your dal, you realize that this simple meal has done something extraordinary. It has made you feel part of something much larger than yourself. The food has acted as a bridge, not just between your hunger and satiety, but between your soul and the community. But as this ancient tradition leaves the fertile plains of the Punjab and enters the glassand steel canyons of western metropolises, it faces a new set of challenges. How does the Langar adapt to a world of skyscrapers, social media, and urban isolation? Can a 15th century kitchen survive in the heart of London or New York? To see how this tradition is tackling the modern plague of urban loneliness and homelessness, we must travel to the great cities of the West, where the Langar of the diaspora is rewriting the rules of urban survival. When the Sikh diaspora began to establish roots in global hubs like London, Toronto, and New York, they brought the hearth of the Guru with them. In these modern metropolises, the Langar has taken on a new, urgent role. In cities where cultural identity is often lost in a sea of consumerism, the Gurudwara stands as a sanctuary of human connection. However, the challenge was never just about the food. It was about maintaining the radical spirit of the geometry of equality in societies built on rigid social distancing. In the West, the Langar isn't just a religious obligation. It has become a frontal assault on the modern plague of urban isolation and the skyrocketing cost of living. In the shadows of Manhattan's skyscrapers or London's financial district, the Langar serves as a vital safety net. It is no longer just for the Sikh community. It is for the students struggling with tuition, the homeless veteran, and the elderly neighbor who hasn't spoken to anyone in days. Here, the cultural anthropology of the meal shifts. The kitchen becomes a bridge between the immigrant experience and the local reality. By offering a high-quality free meal in the middle of a food desert or an expensive urban core, the Sikh community demonstrates a life philosophy that views the city not as a collection of individuals, but as a single breathing family. Adapting this tradition to the West also requires navigating complex legal and health regulations that the ancient kitchens of India never faced. Yet, the monumental logistics of the Sikhs has proven incredibly resilient. they have managed to translate the scale of the Golden Temple into the sterile, highly regulated environments of Western Europe and North America. In doing so, they have forced a conversation about cultural heritage and public service. When a Gurudwara in Canada serves thousands during a winter storm, it is unseen as a soup kitchen, a term that often carries a stigma of failure, but as a community kitchen, a place of shared strength and mutual respect. Furthermore, the Langar in the West has become a tool for food diplomacy. It is often the first point of contact between the local population and the Sikh faith. By opening their doors and offering a plate, the community dispels myths and replaces fear with transcendence. It is hard to harbor prejudice against someone who is handing you a warm roti and asking for nothing in return. This human connection is the ultimate defense against the rising tide of xenophobia. It proves that the most effective way to integrate into a new society is not by abandoning your ancient wisdom, but by using it to serve the common good of your new home. The Western Langar also highlights a profound irony of our time. In societies that produce more waste than almost anywhere else on Earth, the Sikh kitchen remains a model of sustainability and efficiency. While local governments struggle with the logistics of social welfare, the invisible army of volunteers quietly and effectively fills the gaps. This has led many urban planners and sociologists to study the Langar as a blueprint for urban resilience. They see it as a way to combat not just physical hunger, but the hunger of the soul that comes from living in a hyper-connected, yet deeply lonely digital age. Stepping out of a Gurudwara, you're thrown back into the bustling heart of a Western city. The contrast is jarring. You've just left a space of timeless, quiet service and re-entered a world of transactions and noise. This transition forces a final, deep reflection. If a 500-year-old tradition can solve the most basic human problem, hunger in any corner of the globe without a single dollar of government funding, what does that say about our modern systems? This leads us to a crucial question about our collective future and the lessons we have yet to learn from the Seva of the Sikhs. But if the Sikhs can feed the world, why is there still global hunger? To unsweat these, we must look at the universal lessons for humanity, where the Langar stops being a religious ritual and starts being a manifesto for a new kind of global civilization. In a world governed by the complex mysteries of economics and the cold logic of profit margins, the Langar stands as a living paradox. It teaches us that the greatest obstacle to solving global problems like hunger is not a lack of resources, but a lack of human connection. The Langar proves that sustainability is as much a social state as it is an environmental one. When we look at this tradition through the lens of cultural anthropology, we see a society that has prioritized the collective over the individual and the sacred over the transactional. It suggests that our current global crisis, inequality, loneliness, and scarcity are merely symptoms of an emotional hunger that no amount of material wealth can truly satisfy. The first lesson the Langar offers is the power of institutionalized empathy. In many modern cultures, we view empathy as a fleeting emotion or a private virtue. The Sikhs, however, turned it into a public infrastructure by building a kitchen before they built a throne. The Gurus taught us that a society is only as strong as its most vulnerable member. This philosophy of life shifts the focus from charity to solidarity. In the Langar, you don't help people because you are superior to them. You help them because you recognize that their hunger is your hunger. It is a lesson in collective memory that reminds us of our shared biological and spiritual frailty. The second lesson is the efficiency of radical trust. Our modern institutions are often paralyzed by bureaucracy, monitoring, and deep-seated suspicion. We spend billions tracking where every cent of aid goes, often spending more on the tracking than on the aid itself. The Langar operates on the opposite principle: zero monitoring and total trust. It assumes that if you give people a genuine chance to serve, they will serve. And if you give people a chance to eat, they will take only what they need. This ancient wisdom challenges the cynical view of human nature and suggests that humans are naturally inclined toward cooperation once the barriers of ego are removed. Finally, the Langar serves as a manifesto for inclusive governance. It is a space where cultural identity is celebrated but never used as a tool for exclusion. In an age of increasing polarization and us versus them mentalities, the Langar Hall remains one of the few places on Earth where people of opposing political, religious, and social views sit in the same line and eat from the same pot. It is a transcendence of the labels that divide us. It proves that the most complex social problems can be addressed through the simplest human actions. If we can share a meal in peace, we can share a planet in peace. The Langar isn't just a tradition for the Sikhs. It is a gift and a challenge to the entire human race. As we reflect on these lessons, we realize that the Langar is a mirror. It reflects back to us what we have lost in our frantic pursuit of progress, the warmth of the hearth, the dignity of service, and the quiet joy of belonging to a community. But the experience of the Langar does not end when you leave the hall. It leaves a stain on the soul, a lingering sense that another world is not only possible, but already exists. This leads us to our final destination, the moment of departure, where the meal ends, but the real transformation begins. Before we conclude this cinematic journey, we must experience one final, silent moment. What happens to the human heart after the last plate is washed and the lights of the golden temple dim? To find out, we must look at the final transformation, where the guest becomes the server. As you walk away from the Langar hall, the rhythmic clanging of the thalas begins to fade into the background, but the experience remains etched in your collective memory. You have witnessed something that defies the modern world's obsession with scarcity and competition. The Langar is more than just a free meal. It is a protest of peace. It is a living, breathing demonstration that the things we often consider impossible, universal feeding, radical equality, and selfless cooperation are actually within our reach if we simply choose to sit on the floor together. The smoke from the kitchens of Amritsar carries a message to every corner of the globe, that no one is a stranger when the bread is shared. The true transcendence of the Langar happens when the guest realizes they are part of the invisible army. Throughout this narrative, we have seen how the billionaire and the laborer wash dishes, proving that the highest form of human achievement is not what we accumulate, but what we give away. This is the life philosophy that the world desperately needs to rediscover. The Langar invites us to ask ourselves a difficult question: what is my Seva? How can I, in my own life and my own culture, create a space where barriers are broken and dignity is restored? It is a call to action that starts in the heart and ends with a plate. In this cinematic documentary of the human spirit, we have decoded the mysteries of antiquity that keep this 500-year-old tradition alive. We have seen that the secret isn't in a complex algorithm or a secret recipe, but in the simple, unwavering belief that all human beings are one. This is the cultural identity of the Sikh faith, but it is also a universal heritage. The Langar is a lighthouse in a stormy world, reminding us that even in our darkest hours, there is a fire burning in a kitchen somewhere, and a seat waiting for us at the table. As we close this chapter on one of the world's most beautiful global traditions, we are left with a sense of profound hope. The Langar shows us that when we stop focusing on our differences and start focusing on our shared needs, the chaos of the world becomes organized by love. It is a triumph of human connection over the coldness of indifference. Whether you are in the heart of the Punjab or the center of a western city, the invitation remains open. There is always a place for you. There is always enough, and you are always welcome. This has been a journey through the cultural heritage of humanity, exploring how a simple bowl of lentils can change the world. We have seen the power of ancient wisdom to solve modern problems, and the ability of sacred rituals to create human connection. As the sun sets on the Golden Temple, the fires of the Langar continue to burn, fueled by the devotion of thousands and the hunger of millions. It is a story that never truly ends, because the work of serving others is never finished. The Langar is not just a destination to be visited. It is a mindset to be carried. It is the realization that the highest value we can offer the world is our presence, our service, and our willingness to recognize the divine in every face we meet. The table is set, the bread is warm, and the world is waiting. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Subscribe for more stories that connect us all.